Today, I am talking all things mindset and weight loss. What things with our mindset are holding us back from seeing the scale change and getting the results we want to get? What mindsets should we adopt? We are discussing all those things today, and I'll be here with Marcy. I'm going to add her in. The fun part of trying to get this to work. There we go.
Hi, friend. Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you? I feel like I'm too close now.
I know, so I'm like trying to maneuver this so I'm not as close. Does
Same.
this look better?
Yeah, you look good.
Okay. You look good too.
Good. How are you?
I'm hanging in. Yeah, I feel like the week is flying by. I can't believe it's August 1st, but I'm ready for it. Well, I shouldn't say I'm ready for August because I don't love the summer. I'm ready for August to be done so that we can be in fall. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm definitely more of a fall person too. It's just the heat. I'm not that. I mean, I live in PA. I don't live in Texas.
Yeah. I mean, I'm in Northern California, so it's hot, but like we've had a crazy hot summer. So yeah, I'm just ready for it to be done. But
I
other than that, all is good.
good.
Yeah.
Well, I'm super excited to talk to you today. We are talking all things mindset. Like I said, we're talking about the things that we see with our clients that struggle with their mindset and how that relates to the scale, and what type of mindsets that we should adopt and, focus on fostering more, within we see in our clients, and of course, like what we use for ourselves. I feel like I have like not weird, but like maybe some different types of mindsets that I've adopted over the years that have really
Sure.
helped me, continue to see progress and get through all the crazy things that happen. Because, like I always say, something's always going to happen. We just got to be more prepared.
Absolutely. Something will always happen. I am a huge testament to that. It's like whenever you think things are going well, life throws you a curveball, right? So
Right.
I love this. Yeah, mindset with Marcy and Maddie.
The dynamic duo.
Yeah, that's right.
For my followers that don't know you, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah. I'm Marcy. I am a nutrition, fitness, let's be honest, mindset coach for the most part. And I have been doing this now for more than 15 years. So I started doing one-to-one personal training and did that for 12. And I gotta be honest, like I never loved it. It was something that I got into after actually getting fired from a sales job. And I'm like, well, this is just going to be my, yeah, I know, something you didn't know about me. And I was like, well, this will just be like my kind of interim thing until I figure out what I'm going to do next. And then I don't want to say like sucked into it, but you and I do have a similar experience with like our chronic health issues and whatnot. So I was struggling big time with that at the time. And I think I was just worried about going back into like corporate America and having some like big career when I was not feeling well. So personal training was kind of like a safe space for me in that regard. And I was doing well, like I was making a good living doing it, right? And then I just decided like I cannot keep doing this every single day for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
So around that time is when things kind of started to pick up on the online space. I hired a business coach. This is back in 2015. Slowly started to build my online presence. And then when COVID happened, it's like the universe just pushed me out, right? Because I wasn't going to do it myself and leave the one-to-one. I probably would still be doing it to this day had COVID
Yeah.
not happened. So it was a blessing in disguise. And then, yeah, I went all in on the online thing and have been doing that ever since.
I
So
love
that is a little bit about my story.
that. I learn something new about you every time.
Right, exactly.
I am Maddie Martinez. I'm a women's health and fitness coach, and I focus on teaching women to get stronger so they're more confident in their body and they're more capable of protecting themselves. That's something that, I think depending on where you live, you might not think about it a lot. You might not, hopefully, not had an experience where you need to, protect yourself in a situation. But I love to teach women they are more capable than they think, and that fitness is I always say it's like the gateway drug of taking more control over your life and your safety. And we have to be our own biggest advocates. And I have felt the struggle and learned to adopt that through my own illnesses that I had and being my biggest advocate in every single way. So I love to teach women how to do that.
Absolutely. I'm curious, like you shoot guns and whatnot, which I love. I've done it one time. A
Uh-huh.
client of mine took me to the range and it was a lot of fun. So much harder than I thought it would be.
Yeah.
And like I'm a pretty tiny person. I think you are too. And I was like, oh, this isn't going to be a big deal. And then like you shoot and you like get,
Uh-huh.
pulled backwards. Like, whoa, like there's like a skill to this.
Yeah.
But did you have your like what got you into it? Did you have like a certain experience? Or like I need to learn how
Um,
to.
Not really. Luckily, not really, right? I mean, that's what we could hope for. But my, I say it's like in a funny way, my dad is from Mexico City. So I feel like my childhood was a lot different than like most, kids who were not like first generation from another country.
Mhm.
So my dad is like very skeptical and just it's always about safety. That's always been like something he's always been concerned about. Not that we grew up anywhere that was like dangerous, but this it's different being from a different country. And so I always thought about that, like, okay, I need to watch like who's around me, things like that. And then just like, I can't remember when this was, maybe like when my husband and I first started dating. We were just like wrestling, and he grabbed both my wrists with one hand, and I
Mm.
was like, oh my god, like what would I couldn't do anything.
Right.
And so I
Yes.
was just like, this is kind of scary. And not to be like that person, but the world is different. And we see things that are crazy things that happen all the time. And women, I was looking up stats with women and different types of attacks. And we are just so susceptible given, we, of course, aren't as big as men. We aren't as strong as men, right? Just scientifically, we are not. And so I was like, you know what? I was a victim with my health for a long time. I don't want to be a victim in any capacity at all. And that's what kind of brought me into it. And I knew I wanted to get into firearms training. It's just, it's a whole different world. It really is. And I've only been in it since like January, and it's like I'm learning something new every single time. But that's what got me into it. Just not having to rely. I don't like to have to really rely on anyone for anything. And
Right.
safety is like that one thing that like, you want a man, and women like to feel protected. And like, I want to feel like I always have my back no matter what I'm doing,
Yeah.
wherever
Yeah, and that's so interesting. Like my mom was actually robbed at gunpoint.
I
This was probably yeah, probably like 30, a little over 30 years ago. So it was my mom, my grandparents, and they were going to visit my aunt who had just had a baby. So they were at like, LA hospital, which not a great area. And yeah, they were in the parking garage, got robbed at gunpoint. And like I mean, who knows what would have happened? Like by the grace of God, a security guard like happened to be rolling by and the
yeah.
guy ran away, but it was, I mean, how scary is that? And I know for myself, like, and I'm just going to be fully honest, I don't want to say like naive isn't really the right word, but I definitely am not always the most like aware,
Mhm.
right? And my ex-boyfriend, who was this like 260-pound like pure muscle power lifter, would always be like, Marcy, like you need to not be walking around at night with your headphones
Yep.
in. Like I know we live in Danville, which is like super safe, which it's really not because people are getting robbed at gunpoint in Danville too,
Mhm.
right? But yeah, you always think like it's not going to happen to me.
Mhm.
My ex-husband was a cop, and I remember on one of our first, not like our first date, but like when we first went out of town together somewhere, like he brought his gun. I'm like, what are you doing? Like bringing your gun? Like that's so weird. And but now I'm like, good thing he brought the gun. You never know. And with everything that's just going on, like the world is different and you just never know. So
Yeah.
much respect. And I think that you are, I'll call like an expander for me that I got to get my shit together in this regard. So when we're together in person in November, we'll have a
Yes.
chat.
Yeah.
You can teach
Yeah.
me your ways.
Yeah.
Good
Yeah.
stuff.
And I think
Yeah.
it's such like a hand thing, right? Because I tell the story all the time. Like when I was learning how to just handle a gun, like there was a woman in my class, and there were so many of us, some of them had to kneel down, and it was her turn. And when she went to get off the ground, she put all of her weight on a table in front of her, like barely getting up. And I just stood there thinking, like, if an intruder came in and she was kneeling and she would never be able to go fast enough there. How could she get herself off the ground? So it's, hand in hand, like building your body and building a strong mindset too, right? Those things, it's all like all encompassing of being a strong person. So,
Absolutely. Yeah. I love that. Good
yeah.
stuff.
So
Oh,
what are some, we'll jump into the
yeah.
mindset thing since we always go off on tangents, even
I
when we're
know.
thing.
It was mindset related. Like it kind of shows like my own mindset block, right? Like, oh, I don't need to take care of myself in that way. It's like, no, yeah, you really do.
Yeah, it's everything. I feel like it's all under the umbrella of, advocating for yourself in the gym, with your safety, all of those things.
Hmm. Hmm.
But what we're going to go into all the types of mindsets here, but what do you feel like are like one of the big mindsets that you see clients struggle like as soon as you start working with them?
Oh, 100% hands down every time, all or nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not for a lack of like not wanting to do a good job. I think it's they do want to. I attract a lot of people pleasers, perfectionists, high achievers, and it's either like I have to do it perfectly or I don't do it at
Yeah.
all. And the reframe that I try to give them and to teach them is like, let's think about this logically because you are a smart woman, you're successful. So think through if you fall, like, let's say that you go a couple hundred calories over your
Mm-hmm.
targets. You think that you're a failure, everything is lost, and then I may as well just, overdo it the rest of the day because I already screwed up. Well, now you dig in yourself into what, 1,000 calorie hole that you have to dig out of.
Yeah.
So doesn't it make more sense to just like stop, stop digging where you are
Mm-hmm.
and recommit, and now it's like, okay, maybe you ended up at maintenance calories for the day, maybe you're still like in a small deficit, and it could be that someone like goes way over for the day, and then maybe that happens on like a Thursday. Well, weekend's here, so screw it, I'm just gonna start again on Monday, and now they've really set themselves back. So yeah, that is by far the biggest mindset block that I see when working with somebody.
And I feel like that, I mean, I'm sure you've gone through that. I remember whenever I was like a teenager in gymnastics, and for some god awful reason we would always have like someone would bring in like donuts and stuff, and like on our break in gymnastics we would have like donuts. I'm like, who thought that was a good idea? Like, it is like, simple carbs. When you're having a lot, right, that's where the issue is. And I remember I would think, oh, my whole day is ruined. It's 10 a.m. I had a donut, like I might as well throw in the towel and go crazy, go off the walls. And like you said, it's like digging that hole and making it so much harder to get out of, when in reality, it could have just been that one thing. And then we moved on from that.
Sure. And with me, when it comes to my nutrition, I will fully admit that I don't struggle, or I did not in the past struggle with that
Mm-hmm.
mindset, probably because I come from more of a like disordered eating background. So I had a lot of that kind of like restriction, restraint mindset. So it was very easy for me to be disciplined, to exhibit willpower, whatnot. But let's be honest, there were, the occasional times where I would find myself in the peanut butter jar or with my hand in the cereal box. Oh, I'm just going to have a handful. I'm just going to have like a lick. And then next thing you know, half the jar is gone, half the box is gone. You're like, well, I may as well just like finish it off or whatever. So I
Right.
think that's usually like the extent to where I would take it.
Mm-hmm.
But still, it's not like, okay, you had 2 tablespoons instead of one, stop here. It's like, no, let's have half the jar instead. Yeah. So I
Yeah.
mean, I definitely fell into that trap as well, for sure. I think I just have always been the one to be like, okay, I'm just going to recommit. Next meal
Mm-hmm.
is an opportunity to get back on track. And that's what I really try to instill in my
Mm-hmm.
clients as well, is you are never too far gone.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, the best solution is just to say, all right, it happened. I forgive myself. I mean, I think there is utility in figuring out why that happened. What was the trigger? What were you feeling? What were you thinking at the time? Because there's always a reason why you do it.
Mm-hmm.
And then, yeah, just say, okay, I forgive myself. Let's learn from it, move on, and you'll be good.
Yeah, I feel like it's a combination of we are trying to escape something else and feel something different. Like, I
Mhm.
think back to when I was sick, and food was such a big like crutch for me, because I was so sick I really couldn't walk, and I was like, oh,
Mhm.
giving me a feeling that I really love. It's chocolate or it's whatever, and that feels good. I just want to keep feeling that, right? But then obviously it's not helping the situation of my weight or my inflammation or anything.
Yeah, yeah. And then it
And
just keeps you in this vicious cycle,
yeah,
100%.
finding what, it's going to feel uncomfortable, but asking yourself, okay, what am I trying to escape from right now? What am I feeling? Because odds are you are trying to escape from something.
Every time. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I always say, food is the most like reliable form of escapism. It's
Mm-hmm.
always there.
Mm-hmm.
It tastes good.
Mm-hmm.
Like it does give you that dopamine hit, that
Mm-hmm.
serotonin boost in the moment. but you really do have to ask yourself, how am I going to feel after the fact? And like, if you are being honest with yourself, because I'm sure the women who are listening to this right now are struggling with this behavior,
Mhm.
think back to all of the times when you found yourself into that situation, and you ate the cookies or the ice cream when you were trying to soothe an uncomfortable emotion, whatever it might be, because there are so many. And
Mhm.
now it's like, okay, well, that kind of serotonin boost or that feel good sensation has gone away, and now I'm left with still having to deal with the emotion that I was trying to avoid in the first place,
Mhm.
and oftentimes the shame and the guilt
Yes.
from using the food, overeating, going off track, abandoning your goal that day, all of that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I would
So,
say that's like shame is, that's a big one. Like even just like I was talking to um yeah, a man, I really wish I would have gotten his position in this company. It's called the Overwatch Collective, but they do mental health for first responders.
mm, I
Um,
love that.
yeah, he was in the Marines, and he said one of the biggest struggles he had mentally coming home was not knowing what to do with himself, because when he was in the Marines, they told him what to do, um, how to act, where to be, at what time exactly. When he came home, he was like, "What do I do?"
No
And
structure.
and for months and months and months, he was just like kind of like dangling in the air, and people were like, "Oh, you're a Marine. You're gonna do so good at whatever you do." And he's like, "Yeah, yeah." And I asked like, what was stopping you from asking for help sooner? And it was like shame and his pride, and like, so shame can show up in so many different forms, whether it's, you were berating yourself for eating that donut and then going further down because you're in a shame spiral, or you're just too, you feel ashamed because you have to ask for help.
Yes. And, it's like thoughts lead to feelings, feelings lead to action.
Mm-hmm.
So if you are experiencing those shame-based thoughts, then, well, I shouldn't say the shame-based thoughts like, oh, I screwed up again. I'm a failure. I always do this. I'm never going to reach my goal. So that is the thought. The feeling then is the shame. And then when you're in that place of shame, you are going to want to get out of it. But typically, again, like I was saying, what is the easiest and most reliable way to like kind of, feel better in the moment? It's to turn to food. And now you're just creating this vicious cycle for yourself that's really hard to get out of. But to quote the amazing Brene Brown, who I'm sure you know,
Mm-hmm.
she always says, and it's one of my favorite quotes of all time, it's so true: shame cannot survive being spoken, and your secrets grow in the dark. I even have experience in like the 12-step recovery program, not because I was an addict or an alcoholic or anything like that. It was more like emotional based issues. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that everybody could benefit from going through that program, because it does allow you to kind of like excavate the feelings of shame that you feel about yourself, feelings that you have like towards other people and whatnot. And so yeah, a lot of that work is, or a lot of the reason people become addicts in the first place, and you don't even have to take it that far, but maybe it's like you overeat, or yeah, you have like some unhealthy coping mechanism, is because of those feelings that you were trying to suppress. But when you can expose them, because a lot of the times you put judgment on yourself, like, I'm the only one who does this. There's something wrong with me. Like, everyone else is perfect and has it together, and I don't. And so I'll never forget when I was going through the process with my sponsor, and we were getting to the part where you have to like do what's called your emotional inventory. So all of the things that like you feel shame and guilt about, like in your life, things that you've done to other people, just like, weird behaviors that you might do, you have to like express those to somebody else. And so she said to me, she's like, here's how I want you to think about it. Let's say that we got like a large group of people together, all of your friends, anyone who was important in your life, and your life was like a movie. So from the moment you were born up until right now, and we were just going through like hour by hour, at what point would you want to run up to the screen, take the remote, and be like, no, we're turning this off? Because like you don't want anyone to know like those things that you did. She's like, that's what you have to expose. That's what you have to share with me.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and she's like, I will tell you, like, whatever you do not share, like, you will not have the greatest kind of like healing
Wow.
experience. And so I I laid everything out there. And what's interesting,
Mhm.
and this is what I also like to tell people, and it really is true, and why not keeping your secrets inside is so therapeutic and
Mhm.
beneficial, is because when I told her some of this stuff, she's like, yeah, me too. Like, you think I haven't done that? Right? And I was like,
Mhm.
oh, okay. So I'm not weird. I'm like, there's not something like wrong with me.
Yeah.
And that can be just like very relieving. And then now when you have that acceptance of yourself, then you don't have to turn to those behaviors that make you kind of like stuff it down, if that makes sense.
Mm. Wow, man, those are some good tidbits there. I even like what you said. I'm gonna try and remember this. You said thoughts lead to feelings, feelings lead to actions.
Hmm.
I'm stealing that. That's so good because I was just telling a client because I have talked about how somatic therapy has helped me so much in my autoimmune disease journey and getting through the brunt of that. Because for me, it was like a lot of the things I was doing, I was just internalizing
Hmm.
and not expressing the emotion, or whether if I was, if I was still dealing with way back when I was really sick and using food as like my crutch, and not dealing with the fact, oh, I'm just really depressed that like I lost my ability to walk, and working out and had gained weight and I wasn't comfortable in my body, right? If I was keeping that emotions in, it was going to present in a different way. And so I always make it like a really good point when I have clients that are, some of them that, for me, I did this too, are constantly berating themselves and saying like, oh, you're so stupid, or you suck, you're the worst because you didn't track your food, or you didn't hit, what goal you had. I was urged them to say like, you like stop yourself, catch yourself saying that and say, no, I didn't track my food today, and just ask myself, why did I not track my food today? It's not that, whatever action we do isn't good or bad. It doesn't make you a good or bad person. It's just an action that happened.
Exactly. And I always like tell someone, don't make it mean anything
Mhm.
about you as a person or your ability to eventually be successful in the future.
Mhm.
Right. Like, and all of these things are going to take time and practice to overcome. So you can't expect yourself just to figure it out overnight. And isn't it so interesting how we give everyone else in our life so much more grace than we do ourselves? Like, why is that? So I mean, you and I, you're a dink, I'm a sink. So no, the no kid life, right?
Uh-huh.
But the majority of my clients, they're parents, and I'm like, so if your kid was learning how to ride a bike and they fell off the first time, would you be like, would you pick the bike up and be like, nope, we're going inside, you
Mhm.
suck? Right? No, you would comfort them, you would make them feel better, you would engage in, positive self-talk, to kind of like boost their confidence. You would encourage them to try again. So we have to apply that same, mindset towards ourselves.
Yeah, and especially if it's a brand new thing. I mean, that's something I feel like I've adopted a bit more is I'm not afraid to, I don't want to say fail or look dumb, right? But I'm not
Hmm.
afraid to try new things and be a total beginner,
Hmm.
because that's the only way, none of us come out of the womb having like a bajillion set of skills, right?
No.
We don't have the Olympics just happened. All those people didn't wake up one day and perform at that level. That was crafted year after year, after day, after training session, after bad training session, after injury, after whatever. It takes time to get at a level that if you want to, perform really well, it takes time to get there. So we can't expect ourselves to perform here when we've been working this amount of time so far.
Absolutely. Well, and let's also take it from the perspective of, yes, those athletes had to spend years developing their skills, getting to the point where they are
Mhm.
now. And there were so many failures that you did not see behind the
Mhm.
scenes. But look at the failures that happened when they were in the spotlight. 4 years ago in Tokyo, Simone Biles, like greatest athlete of all time,
Mhm.
totally like had a major, kind of like mental meltdown.
Mhm.
A lot of the athletes who were expected to have incredible performances this year, they ended up making a mistake. And so it still happens to even the best of the
Mhm.
best, right? Yeah, so you can prepare and, do your best to like be in a good spot, but it doesn't always work out that way. And I think this is a good segue into what we were talking about in the beginning of the the call, not the call, but the talk, about like um how do you, now I like totally lost my train of thought. Oh, I know, like life not going according to plan. So
Mhm.
you can prepare and then something happens and now you've kind of like gotten off track, so to speak.
Mhm.
So, or, you have this like expectation that you've set for yourself. So I want to reach this goal. Here's what I'm going to do to achieve it. And then the kid gets sick, you get injured, something bad happens, and yeah, you're like, okay, well, now I don't have the time, I don't have the capacity, so you throw in the towel,
Mhm.
rather than just seeing it as an opportunity to pivot, to adjust, maybe dial down the intensity of what you're doing so that you can still make at least some forward progress, or at the bare minimum maintain, which I feel in many situations can still be a form of progress.
Yeah, I think people tend to forget, how much can happen when we're just maintaining and we're not worrying about being in a fat loss phase or putting on serious muscle because, the goal is to not always be like in this
Mhm.
deficit, right? That's not good for our body anyhow. But there's so much can happen when your body's being well fed, when you're still working out consistently, when you're not super stressed out. The body can do so much good there. I feel like I've even had the most success with my own journey just being in maintenance and eating a lot of food and getting a lot of sleep. Like,
Yeah, it's where the magic happens.
yeah,
Yeah.
a lot can happen there. And kind of like what you said, it's like where, you have these grand plans, I'm going to do this. And then, your kid gets sick or you get injured, right? And I look at it as, okay, what can we still focus on to keep us moving forward, even if it's not everything? Because that's
Mhm.
in itself to see, like something happening as an opportunity to fine tune. Okay, if I can't work out right now, I can work out maybe the other areas of my body that are injured or really focus on sleep and get tons of water. That's still going to get you closer to your goal compared to just stopping everything because you can't do one thing.
Right. And also to, excuse me, focus on the biggest style movers. So regardless if you want to lose weight, maintain your weight, build muscle, gain some weight, like it's always going to come down to predominantly your nutrition.
Mhm.
So if you can have that on lockdown as much as possible, then the workouts aren't going to matter as much. I mean, yes, they are still an important component, but
Mhm.
if just maintaining, is the goal for that, season, so to speak, then
Mhm.
yeah, I would say the nutrition needs to be the number one focus. Put your time, your effort, attention into that. And maybe it's, letting go of the perfectionism where, oh, I went into this tracking everything. I
Mhm.
don't have the capacity to track, but I know how important the nutrition is. So I'm going to, rely on like a habits-based approach, a mindfulness-based approach, rather than just completely throwing everything out the window. Then another thing that can be helpful is establishing non-negotiables for yourself.
Mhm.
So, okay, I want to get 10,000 steps. I can't do that right now. I'm at least going to go for one walk per day.
Mhm.
I can't track my macros. I'm going to eat a protein and vegetable at every meal. So
Mhm.
you're maintaining some standards that are going to allow you to at least, stay where you are.
Yeah.
And who knows, like maybe you can make some progress, right? Like don't just yeah, don't discount that.
Yeah. I feel like even like with vacation, right? I mean, I'm not saying anyone needs to go on a diet phase like during vacation, right? That's not the goal. But you can still, if you want to maintain your weight better, if you just lost weight and are going on vacation, I love using the non-negotiables
Mhm.
during that time. Like I always say, okay, I'm going to get like a gallon of water in because everyone gets dehydrated on vacation. I know for steps, we're always walking around and doing something. Like steps are super easy for me. Maybe I struggle with like the veggies. I'm gonna get, a big salad every day. But having a few things to where you come home and you're not like, why is the scale up so much when it's probably just extra water weight? But then you also feel better and it's really easy to get back into a routine. So yeah, non-negotiables are fantastic for that.
Yes. Yeah, that's definitely one of my favorite strategies for sure.
Hmm. And even one kind of to tie back from earlier is like when it's the analogy of if you had a flat tire, right? Would you go and slash the other three? Right?
I would hope you wouldn't. That's an expensive mistake.
Yeah, and so it's the same thing. Like just because you had one bad meal, like you said earlier, you have the next opportunity with your next meal. Like, oh, okay, last meal was a little bit like not the greatest of what I wanted. How can I just do a little bit better my next meal? But that doesn't mean what we've probably seen from clients. I know I have where they come to us and they're like, well, I really overate in the past, and what I would do is the next day I wouldn't eat the entire day, or I would have one small thing. But when you do that, you're setting yourself up for a little bit more failure because you're going to be starving by the end of the day and feel like crap.
Yes.
So I always say if that happens, act like it never happened,
Nope.
move on.
Gone.
Okay,
Yes. Erase it.
yeah, we're
Yeah.
not doing
And again, kind of going back to what I was saying earlier, I do think that there is a lot of utility in figuring out why it
it.
happens, so that we don't repeat the behavior.
Yeah.
But once you have that awareness, then try to erase it from your memory and move on. Yeah, like what's next? Keep on moving, for sure.
Just
Yeah.
really about like how can I be a little bit better today and just keep moving forward because like we said, stuff is always going to happen. You get sick, you get injured, planes change. What did I just say?
Plans
Plans.
change. Planes, hey, I mean, these days planes do like do some weird
Yeah,
shit. So like, yeah, that can throw you off your game.
I was gonna say just like with the whole airline thing that just happened, and everyone was in a freaking tizzy because Trainer Eyes. I don't use Trainer Eyes for my clients. Do use Trainer Eyes. They couldn't access their workouts. Like, what are we gonna do, right? So many people couldn't work out for half the day that day, right? So, what is something you can do? Can you flip flop your schedule? Whatever it is, but something might always happen. So it's better to have the mindset of how can I still move forward and this not like blow up my entire years of training.
Yeah. And it's also like, let's get resourceful and let's be intelligent. So you've been doing this workout likely for a couple of weeks. I mean, God forbid it was the first week of the program. You hadn't yet looked at what that new workout was going to be. So it's like, oh, what it was supposed to be, this new one. Like, I don't even know what that's going to look like. Now I can't do anything. Okay, go back to last week's workout. I'm sure you remember what you
Yeah.
did. Repeat it. Like, is it
Yeah.
really that big of a deal? Like some people just like they don't use their brains. I hate to say that, but it's true. Like
Sure.
I love drinking elements. Like, this is a good example too. And I'll recommend it to people. They're like, it's so salty. And I'm like, then dilute it. Like these things aren't that hard.
I know.
Like just don't make it so complicated. It
Yeah.
can really like let it be
Yeah.
easy.
Yeah.
And
Keep
it's a
it
mantra.
yeah, keep
Yeah.
it stupid.
Yeah.
Um, I had a thought and it totally escaped me. Are there any extra tidbits you wanted to share?
Um, I think just kind of going back to like the all or nothing thinking and what I was saying about like if you have a kid and they're learning how to ride your bike and they make a mistake, you're not going to say, okay, we're done. But also like look for evidence where there have been situations in your life to not even situations, but like let's say that your relationship, right? You don't get married, you don't start dating, and after the first date, like why has he not proposed yet? Or you go to get a degree, maybe it's an MBA, or you want to become a doctor, and after the second semester you're like, why haven't I graduated yet? Like we don't do that in any other areas of our life. Or like perfect example at work. Okay, you make a mistake, you send the wrong email. Oh well, I should just put in my resignation because I suck.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't do that in other areas of our life. Maybe those thoughts are there. I mean, I've certainly had them. Like I have another job that I do outside of this. Yeah, and if I make a mistake, it's just like, oh gosh, like here we go again. Like maybe this where I'm really not cut out for this. But I don't make it mean anything for like the rest of the day and then, just like close the computer. I'm not going to respond to people until tomorrow. Or like, yeah, I am going to put in my resignation. But we do that with our health and fitness. And that is what I have not yet figured out. And maybe I should, interview my own clients. Like, why do you have that mentality? Why are you so successful in these areas, even if you have had slip ups and setbacks, but you can't apply the same thing to improving your health and fitness?
I think it might be it's like self-inflicted, right? Because I have numerous clients that had like they would say, "Oh, I suck. I'm the worst when I don't hit my protein." And I'm like, is your neighbor Susie down the street gonna knock on your front door and be like, "You didn't hit your protein. You suck." No, but it's like that expectation that we put on ourselves to perform at a crazy high level, and if we don't hit that, then we are the worst. I really think
Yeah.
self-inflicted for a lot of people.
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, this stuff is so complicated, and that's why you also have to give so much grace to yourself. I was having a conversation with a client earlier today who is kind of stuck in this cycle of saying that she's not going to drink over the weekend or she's going to limit herself to two, and then she ends up having way more. And like, where did this come from? Like, what is the struggle? Because it's not necessarily, I mean, in this situation, like, yes, it is about the alcohol,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not always about the surface level thing. It's about something deeper. So, you know, you're married, and let's say that you always tell your husband to put the dishes away, and he keeps leaving them in the sink.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about, and then you guys get in this huge fight. It's not about the dishes. It's
Mm-hmm.
about the fact like you feel disrespected. You don't feel like he's hearing you and like, you know, valuing like what's important. So I think that like the same thing can apply in this situation, right? So yeah, it's like kind of what are you making it mean about yourself? Like so anyway.
Yeah, no, I think that's true. And I'll end with when it comes to whatever goal you want to reach in health and fitness, and whether it's weight loss or not, this stuff will be your kryptonite if you just avoid
Mhm.
it.
Oh, sorry. I lost my train of thought there. And I was like, oh, what was I gonna say? So circling back to like my client about the alcohol, I was asking her like where did this stem from?
Uh-huh.
So, you know, because there's a reason why you keep repeating this pattern.
Uh-huh.
And it went back to when she was a teenager. Like she started to drink when she was 16 because she was overweight, she had acne, she didn't feel good about herself. And so drinking was her way to kind of like I mean, escape, yes, but loosen up, like be the life of the party. And now that is carried on into adulthood. So so much of what we are experiencing right now is the result of childhood, whether it's like, you know, traumas even. So we start doing these coping mechanisms to essentially protect ourselves to not have to feel something. But like perfect example, my mom growing up, she used to say things like a moment on your lips, forever on your hips. So that kind of ingrained this good food, bad food mentality. You know, I saw her dieting. So of course, like you're going to model whatever was, you're going to take on whatever was modeled to you.
Mhm.
Clean plate club. That's the thing, right? So if you were told when you were young, you can't get up from the dinner table unless you clean your plate. Well, now as an adult, you know, even if you know that's not serving you, you're going to have that mentality like, oh, it's wasteful. You know, there are starving kids in Africa. So you just keep repeating those behaviors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's why assessing those things will be the biggest help to you, or ignoring them is going to be what holds you back.
Mhm.
And it could be something so small, it could be something bigger like what your mom was saying, you know, without I don't think it's like she maliciously mean that. She probably heard that. So, you know, it's important if you are struggling with like, why can't I just make myself, you know, not eat this or avoid that or stick to a diet, whatever it is, you know, it has to do with the way you're thinking about things, what you're assigning things to mean about yourself, the feelings you're harboring. It's so much more than just fat loss, weight loss just isn't for me. It's more of how you're thinking about things or avoiding things.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you know, we can like wrap it up here pretty soon, I'm sure. But one thing that I like to um, tell clients, like an exercise to give them, is look for evidence of where in your life you have been successful in either that exact same situation or a similar situation. So with this client that I was speaking to earlier with the alcohol, I was like, I'm sure there have been plenty of times where you've gone somewhere and maybe you didn't know everybody, you felt a little bit socially awkward, but there wasn't alcohol. Like you couldn't have the drink to, you know, fit in and make yourself feel more comfortable, but you got through it.
Mhm.
So that is evidence that you can do it again.
Mhm.
And now it's just a matter of like repeating that over and over again until that becomes your new identity.
Yeah. And not assigning that to yourself. Like
Hmm.
for I can't track food, I'm the worst, right? Of course, if you think I can't do this or I'm not that person that wakes up early, you're never going to be able to wake up early. But if you keep, you know, faking it till you make it and just practicing who you want to be and how you want to act, you will be able to do
Yeah.
that. But telling yourself you can't do it, you won't do it.
I mean, it always starts with belief. So you have to start building that belief, and you do that by taking the small action and kind of like getting that win, that will help build self-trust and confidence.
Mhm.
But the more you break the promises to yourself, that chips away at your self-confidence.
Mhm.
My one of my biggest mindset strategies that I use with myself repeatedly every single day is what I call the pillow test. So
Mhm.
whenever I'm on that or at that decision point, should I go to the gym? Should I skip it because I'm really not feeling it? It's like, how do you want to feel when you're headed to the pillow tonight? Do you want to
Oh.
be proud of
Mhm.
the choice that you made? Or do you want to be disappointed and be like, oh, I did it again. I'm not meant for this. And like I just said, that does slowly trip away at your self-confidence to the point where then, you don't have that belief and now you stop trying altogether.
Mhm.
And then the second would be like, one, like look for evidence of where in your life you have done something similar,
Mhm.
you've overcome a struggle. And then two, like borrow the belief from somebody else. So look to your coach, look to, someone that you admire who has overcome and is similar to you. Like, I'm not going to compare myself to Simone Biles, right? But like, oh, like Maddie,
Mhm.
she's someone who is similar in size to me, similar, well, I'm much older, but you know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
same background. If she can shoot a gun, then I can too.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you have great tidbits. I'm sure everyone
Well,
way good
my
stuff.
clients don't call me Mindset Marcy for no reason. So,
No, I get that. Well, thank you for talking. I know
you're
we could go
welcome,
on like
friend.
we'll definitely
Yeah.
do another round of this, talking more on
And
mindset.
then podcast in 2025.
Yes, yes. Marcy will be. I know. I was like, we really need to start doing more than one a month
Oh
because
my
it's like we have.
God, why do you guys only do one a month? You should do like at least two.
No, we drop weekly
Oh,
episodes.
we drop weekly.
We
Okay,
only
I was like, we only do one a month.
oh no,
Got it.
no, no. We only interview one guest a month because
That
it's
makes
like,
sense.
if someone wants to sponsor a podcast, you're more than welcome to.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
a lot of time for a free thing. So no,
Absolutely understand.
yeah.
All right, my friend. Well, thank you for having me on. It was a pleasure.
No, it was so fun. I will probably text you after this.
Yes, absolutely.
All right.
Okay,
Bye.
talk soon.
Bye,
Bye.
guys.